I don't know about you, but I'm ready for summer to be over. It's going on and on here. It's still hot and humid, hard to sleep at night. I'm ready for sweaters and fires and crunchy leaves and fog and roast dinners and by the way, a very, very nice Canadian rye whiskey. This is Northern Harvest Rye from Crown Royal. This was a World Whiskey Award winner. It was impossible to get this for the longest time. It's not necessarily expensive, and you can have it delivered right to your door, unless you live in Canada, through the Whiskey Exchange. You can get any bottle there. Rare, discontinued, all of it. This with a cube or neat little taste of Canada. And of course, you'll be supporting the show. A link to this in the description. Now, as for Wednesday, am I ever relieved that the players clearly put a shift in? There was no question about the effort level among the players who seemed to play for the badge. Thank goodness, what a relief. Now, it's still the worst start to a Premier League season for Aston Villa since 1997 when Brian Little was in charge. So we're going to have to talk about it. Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 1. Here's the GIF that best describes how that game made me feel. Unlike Sunday, I actually watched this game completely stress-free. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because Arsenal is in a fantastic run of form and they're the home team. Aston Villa not in a good way right now for many of reasons. And because of that, I almost felt like an observer rather than a supporter. And you know that's going to add years to my life. And you know what else? I don't want to do shows or make comments or provide analysis that's emotion-driven. I want to stick to footballing fact and factors. And so I feel very at peace with that right now. However, the situation has not improved. This is a dead man walking. You could see it all over his face. You could see it on the faces of his staff. This is a very uncomfortable time, and I know what's happening. There are people above who are not communicating anymore. There are meetings occurring all around or elsewhere without him being involved. There is uncertainty in the air, and that has to be awful if you've ever been involved in a situation like that. And this is a first for Steven Gerrard. He's never gone through this before, and that reality is starting to hit home. Right, here we go with the Holy Trinity show, the 3 key issues or moments that defined Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 1, starting as always with the key statistics. Grim reading, unless you're in red, because Arsenal dominated from tip to tail. The additional stat I looked at today was accurate long balls because Arsenal was playing around and over Villa's very narrow setup. And for the second straight match, Aston Villa did not create a big chance. So they're not generating chances and they're not keeping the ball out of the back of their net. Not a good combination. Accurate long balls, 60% completed by the home side, just 21. So the outball was not there for Villa either. Now, I want to look at the individual stats of Boubacar Kamara. He has been the poster child. He has been revered thus far as a big signing, but he had a tough old day at the office, and he wasn't the only one. Emi Buendia's statistics were deplorable, as were Leon Bailey's, especially at halftime. Hard to expect players who don't start to suddenly be thrown together and expect them to gel right away, so I get that part, but Steven Gerrard said it. We technically were not good enough in the first half. We did not keep the football, and that was an issue. But for Kamara, accurate passes in his position are important, and that was pretty poor. He only won 1 of 3 tackles, and again, as a 6, he should be making more of those. Only 2 of 5 on the accurate long balls. He's supposed to be a transitional type player. Did make 4 recoveries, which is decent. He also had 4 of 9 ground duels won. Again, not the best in his position. He did have 1 interception. He is going to get better. He is a good player, but today, against a good side, he was examined. Now, before we get into the game itself, the transfer window is closing on Thursday, and Villa was linked with another couple of names before kickoff, one being Lucas Moura, the winger attacking player with Spurs, and Leander Dunker, primarily a number 6 with Wolves, which actually had me encouraged that maybe this club was coming to its senses and thinking about playing in a 4-2-3-1. But what happened to all this talk of the owners backing us in this transfer window? It's something we've been hearing all summer. Maybe that was just pure speculation, but all of a sudden, all the links to center backs have dried up. Where is the number 8 that we so desperately have needed for 2 years? And why would we agree to potentially pay $25 million for an attacking winger type powerful young player to buy him outright and hopefully appreciate his value, rather than a 30-year-old squad player at Spurs as a loan option? Now, the obvious theories could be, number 1, that they've simply lost faith in their recruitment strategy and execution. Because let's be honest, the owners have pumped a lot of money into this club, especially since 2020, and it feels like we've actually gone backwards in our recruitment somehow, and we've certainly regressed in our table positions. And isn't it weird that the club posted a job for a senior scout to report to Rob McKenzie? Remember him, the head of recruitment? Haven't heard much from him. But this seems like a weird time because the next time they'll be able to bring in players won't be until January. And yes, scouting does take a long time, so I understand that. Then, of course, the other theory is they've simply lost faith in their manager. And I imagine that Bournemouth game would have been a giant red flag after such a promising preseason. And you know, Nassif Sawiris is pretty hands-on. He's got the place in London. He would have been at the Emirates on Wednesday, I would imagine. And if you don't have faith in your manager anymore, you're certainly not throwing piles of money at him. Now, the other possibility, and I worry about this a lot, and it should be a concern to all of us because it's much greater than anything football related, is the looming economic and energy crisis that seems to be coming in the fall and winter, which will particularly affect Europe, but especially the UK and everywhere for that matter. And our owners are smart guys. They get ahead of things. That's why they're successful. Do they know something that we don't know here? Because if there is to be a crisis, and we've heard about energy crisis and economic crisis for a long time, along with recession. I mean, if somebody has to choose between a match ticket and their heating bill, guess what they're choosing? And maybe the owners are just saying it is too risky to outlay a whole bunch of money right now, because if this is the case and people are squeezed, that's going to affect a lot of clubs. And so maybe they're being conservative, because it seems to me like all the business is basically loans in and loans out, which kind of is like a no obligation way of approaching it. And you know what worries me about not adding to this squad right now? Any injury in any of those 3 lines, we're hooped. We're relying on kids all of a sudden, and we're not doing that. The manager doesn't seem to have faith in the kids. That's probably partially to preserve his job. And I'd actually like to see kids play, but that takes some bravery, and that's not happening right now. And that would also irritate me if I was the owner. They've invested so heavily in youth, not just finding the players, but then putting the coaches around them and all the support and all the facilities. I mean, today we were shown what a European contending team looks like. We were so badly outclassed. And if we're all seeing that, the owners must be seeing that themselves. No? And I hope we didn't get some kind of false sense of security either. Well, it was only 2-1 at the end. No, this was not even close. And yes, maybe it had a lot to do with the setup and the stylistics and the formation, etc., etc. But I cannot remember ever going from such confidence in preseason to such concern in such a short period of time. Big issue number 3, narrow-minded. This was a constant topic of discussion on my broadcast feed, and it's been a discussion, quite frankly, since November. Ollie Watkins, Emi Buendia, and Leon Bailey were so close together at times, you could throw a blanket over them. And the problem is, if you can beat one guy with an out ball, you're beating all 3. In fact, how easy is it to play a ball over or around those guys, and you're off and running because they are so close together? How easy is it to defend a group like this that are so close together? I just don't get it. I've never seen anything like it, quite frankly, because the first rule of gaining possession. I mean, this is as old as the hills, is when you gain possession, you disperse. You make the field bigger so you have pockets to play into. Aston Villa does the complete opposite. They contract. They become compact. And this is why the rumored approach for Sarr and Mora is weird. Those guys like space on the flanks. They like being wide. Mind you, so did Bailey and even Buendia when he was still at Norwich. It just doesn't make any sense as we're asking players that are square pegs to try to fit into round holes. Number 2, the dreaded 1-0 goal. Oh, it's always the 1-0 goal with Aston Villa for the last year and a bit. Allowing the 1-0 goal is a death knell for points. And what's so frustrating is after all the Arsenal pressure, shots, chances, goal line clearances, great Emi Martinez saves, it was such a poor goal that allowed Arsenal to take the lead. And once again, Ezri Konsa, a central figure. What has happened to Ezri Konsa? I'm actually starting to subscribe a little bit to this notion that having John Terry as your personal center back coach when he was with the club was a huge benefit for this player and probably Tyrone Mings and others. And isn't it weird, by the way, that Terry left his post because he didn't want to be a distraction while he was looking for another job, and now he's not found another job, and it doesn't look like he's even going to be in management? Anyway, I digress. Who is from this monstrous coaching staff in charge of the center back work or working with the defensive units? I have no idea, but I don't think they're a defensive specialist based on what we've seen so far this year. And this is what's so frustrating. Konsa was involved in this goal. He was involved, came late, deflected the shot against West Ham. He was responsible for the 3-1 and the 1-1 goals. At least he had a big hand in them at Crystal Palace. And he was involved as well on both goals at Bournemouth to start the year. And yet there's Callum Chambers sitting on the bench after having had a great preseason. I don't know what the guy's done wrong. Maybe I don't know football at all and I don't know what I'm looking at, but he's a former Arsenal player. Don't you think he wanted to stick it to his old team like any player would? Like, don't you think he was one of the better players against West Ham? No, we'll give it to Ezri Konsa. Oh, look, he's made another mistake again. And now we're down 1-0. Well, this goal is super irritating and so many things went wrong, and this is why Aston Villa can't keep clean sheets. Such basic stuff. First of all, that's Ezri Konsa there keeping Granit Xhaka onside. If he takes 2 steps forward, he's offside, and we're not talking about this goal. Tyrone Mings has Gabriel Jesus all wrapped up there at the edge of the penalty area, and Matty Cash is very generous. I think it's Martinelli who plays the ball in. And look at how slowly Ezri Konsa closes down, and then he leaves in a lazy leg, and there's the easy tap-in. Let's wind it back again, because the first thing that Ezri Konsa needs to do is close down so quickly and show Xhaka onto his weaker right foot. He wants it on his left foot so he could play it across. But no, Konsa's late and slow. Oh, and then he sticks out a lazy leg again. And that deflection makes Emi Martinez spill it. And here's Tyrone Mings suddenly realizing, he's going to score. And he does. Let's look at it from another angle. You could see here, Matt Cash really, really generous on allowing that ball through. And look at that space. Look at how lazy that defending is. And this is why the manager was mad afterwards. And he didn't say Ezri Konsa's name out loud, but he should have, because this is terrible defending. And don't tell me that Konsa should be trying to block this. No, he shouldn't. He should try to close down faster and show Xhaka onto his weaker right foot. Problem solved. Now he's deflected it and Martinez spills it. And the number one big issue or moment that defined Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 1, switch on, switch off. Incredibly, for the third game out of 5 this season, Aston Villa have committed a cardinal sin. They've gone against football's 10 commandments. Thou shalt not concede a goal within 5 minutes of scoring one. A second Olimpico in just over a week for Douglas Luiz. Do you have any idea how incredible that is? It was like hitting the mute button at the Emirates. It's 1-1. Arsenal players are like, but we should be up 4-1 right now. This is incredible. We had the game in hand. Now it's 1-1. This feels a lot like last year. And instead of putting their foot on the ball, instead of keeping possession the way they did in the first half against West Ham, what are they doing? They're launching 50-50 balls into midfield, hoping that Ollie Watkins wins an aerial duel with two defenders, or Luca Dean just heading it aimlessly into a cluster of players in midfield. Why not just give the ball to Phil Coutinho? He could run with it for 5 minutes by himself or take a foul and slow the game down. No, we're not going to do that. We're just going to give it right back and concede and lose the game. What is so bizarre about this weird system Villa plays is, yes, they are narrow in possession. So when they have the ball, they're narrow. And rarely in that first half did Luca Dean or Matty Cash overlap or overload. I don't know why. Maybe it was because they were afraid of getting caught on the counter, because they have been so many times this year and teams know how to play in behind them now. But they're also narrow out of possession. I mean, here we are in the moments after scoring. Villa needs to keep their foot on the ball, keep possession, move it around, force Arsenal to chase. Instead, they're playing long balls and trying to win 50-50 duels in midfield. And they're playing extremely narrow defensively. So they're basically saying, oh, yeah, Martinelli, you can have the entire left flank to yourself. And what does Gabriel do? One long 60-yard ball beats the entire Aston Villa team. And look at Matt Cash and how far away he is here. And from here, Arsenal is able to do the damage. And it's not pretty because look at Cash's position here. Not sure who he's supposed to be marking. Konza is occupied in the middle. Martinelli is wide open. It's not even a great contact. Emi Martinez not covered in glory either, even though 2-1 was a flattering scoreline because he was very good in this game. But once again, they've scored and conceded less than 5 minutes later. That is absolutely criminal. And it's the sign of a team that is mentally just not at the races. And now, Manchester City at Villa Park on Saturday, a team that just destroyed Forest 6-0 with that giant Norwegian man-child Erling Braut Haaland scoring another hat-trick. I think the only hope we have is that he's scored so many goals and celebrated so often that he's just exhausted himself and won't be able to start on Saturday. We played them so well in the final game last year, in what would have been such an incredible story to turn the tide on the championship. I mean, Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa nearly handed his beloved club the championship. And maybe that was just yet another harbinger of doom and gloom to come, which makes you wonder, are we ever going to experience joy again? As you can see, I've been wearing the 87-88 Hummel-inspired retro strip. What a kit this was. I just graduated high school. Paul Birch, rest his soul, running around in this, and you could own it as well. I've put a link down in the description because I'm a Fanatics affiliate member. You can also buy the third kit, which was on display Wednesday. Just a word of warning with all retro gear, size down. I'm 6'2", 250. This is a 2XL. I could have gotten away with an XL, maybe even a large. So check the size chart. Lots to talk about next time out. Will there be transfers? Who knows? Of course, Manchester City gulp looming. Until then, try to stay cool, stay positive, and as always, up the mighty Villa. Gary McAllister's face looks like an ice cream cone that's melting.